Welcome back after the break. We are continuing coverage on budget, and now to decode the budget numbers, we are joined by Ravi Agarwal, CBDT Chairman, and Vivek Chaturvedi, CBIC Chairman. Let's get across and see what Sumita and Prakash are asking questions to them.
You see, before I answer this question on STT, let me also put the things in perspective and highlight what are the essential components of the budget as such, and the background also. Because if you see in the last 2 years, substantial changes have been made in the tax laws, direct tax laws. And with effect from 1/4/26, the new Income Tax Act is going to be there with simplified language. So if you recall the discussions that we had last budget, the narrative was that, well, is it only about simplification of language or is something more, right? I would say it was the first step. Simplification of language was the first step. The second step is what has happened now, wherein you have brought out different changes in terms of decriminalization, minimizing litigation, optimizing the processes of assessment, rationalizing TDS, TCS rates, and some other Black Money Act, right? So there are different components and facets that you would find in this budget, which actually course correct the process and way forward also, because 1/4/26, then you have an act with a simplified language and with defined, redefined processes. So that's how you ought to look at this entire exercise.
So just have a follow-up question to that, point about STT. Of course, the expectation of the industry was that there would be a slashing in terms of, the STT tax, but it has been raised. Are there any concerns that you have in terms of retail participation or investor participation? Do you think that's going to discourage that?
Yeah, so if you see STT, STT rates on the normal trade or the purchase and sale of equity has not been disturbed, because that's investment. That's okay. STT on F&O segment has only been disturbed. And the background also is that if you see over a period of time, last 1 year or maybe 2 years, there has been an exponential growth in the volumes of F&O. So much so that if you compare it in terms of the GDP, the multiples are really staggering. About 500 times the GDP of the country. That is the volume of the trade in F&O segment. And the other aspect is that most of the retail investors, people who are participating, have lost money, right? So that's another component of it. So how do you actually take care of it? How do you address it? So in this budget, through this increase of the rates, to some extent, this issue has been addressed, wherein by increasing the rates, somehow you dissuade the retail investors from actually entering into this sort of a thing, where net result is, for them, it's a loss, right? So it is not to be considered as a revenue augmenting exercise, but it is basically to be considered from that perspective.
Okay. एक क्वेश्चन सर इसी से रिलेटेड है और मैं उम्मीद करूंगा कि आप हिंदी में ही जवाब दीजिए। खासकर जब एसटीटी से संबंधित रिकमेंडेशंस प्री बजट कंसल्टेशन की प्रक्रिया जब चल रही थी, तो इंडस्ट्री ने सरकार को जब सौंपी थी, उसमें उन्होंने मांग की थी कि जो कैश ट्रेड से ऊपर जो एसटीटी है उसको कम किया जाए एज कम्पेयर टू एफ&ओ से। तो कैश पे तो कम नहीं किया गया, एफ&ओ पे बढ़ा दिया गया। तो आपको लगता है कि ओवरऑल मार्केट के सेंटिमेंट के लिए ये फैसला ठीक नहीं था, क्योंकि इस वक्त जो जिस तरीके की जियोपॉलिटिकल सिचुएशन है उसके बीच में
ये सारे फैक्टर्स कंसिडर किए गए थे कि इसमें किसको हमको बढ़ाना चाहिए, किसको सेम रखते हैं। और जैसे मैंने कहा कि जो आपका कैश सेगमेंट था उसमें नहीं बढ़ाया गया, उसको बिल्कुल यथावत रखा गया है। उसमें बेसिकली भाव यही था कि कैश सेगमेंट को हमको डिस्करेज नहीं करना है, राइट? बट सो फार एज एफ&ओ को है, एफ&ओ सेगमेंट में हमको एक ऐसा मैसेज देना है जहाँ पर जो रिटेल इन्वेस्टर है उसको एक थोड़ा सा डिस्करेजमेंट भी हो.
उसका प्रोटेक्शन हो. ओके.
In fact, so that's a very important messaging that you have given the fact that, the finance minister also in the past on several occasions has mentioned that, investor protection is key, and this is coming from different quarters of the government as well. So appreciate you clarifying that particular measure. But sir, let me come to you in terms of the kind of duty reductions that we've seen, whether it's related to solar, whether it's related to electronics components and several other sectors. Give us an understanding of, the kind of outcome that the government is hoping to achieve with the kind of, these duty reductions and clearances and inverted duties that have been given.
So if you look at the budget proposals, largely we have looked at tariff rates, particularly in those sectors where either the Indian industry requires a certain degree of protection, or it is also to promote manufacturing, boost growth, make the industry more resilient, and also certain very critical sectors of the economy. Now, for example, setting up of nuclear power plants. We've done away with the duty rates and given an exemption on goods which are required for setting up a nuclear power plant. And earlier there was a limit of 440 megawatts, which has also been done away with. Similarly, the duty exemption on monazite, which is a very critical thing for manufacture of magnets for electrical vehicles.
Yes.
Sodium antimonate, which goes into the manufacture of the solar glass panels for the solar industry. Capital goods for manufacture of lithium-ion batteries, which are actually part of your energy storage systems. So it's been a very calibrated approach. We're looking at very critical sectors of the economy. We're looking at energy security. We are looking at boosting production. We are looking at protection. It's not been a very random exercise. It's been a very, very carefully crafted exercise. Largely, we have looked at input materials, raw materials. We've also, apart from that, what we've also done is, in fact, this is one part which usually gets missed out because the focus is largely on the duty part. But we've also done away with a lot of exemption notification entries, which were redundant. We've also done what we call a tariffization. Now, basically what it means is that exemption notification or a concessional duty rate, which has been used by the trade and industry for a very long period of time, it has now been converted into the tariff rate of duty. So the trade gets predictability. It gets an assurance. He doesn't have to turn 20 pages and look for a notification entry. It simply goes to the customs tariff and there is the rate. We've created new tariff entries. Wherever there were issues, wherever there were classification disputes with the trade, an item could go this way or that way, and there could be a duty difference. So we've tried to solve that. Old exemption notifications, redundant entries, we've cleaned it up really pretty exhaustively. And again, I would say that this is a part of a review process, and it will keep on happening. So the approach has been extremely calibrated, and approach is designed for serving a specific purpose.
So does it part of this next generation custom reforms that the finance minister has talked about?
Yes.
Okay.
So those are the slew of measures that we've taken, largely on the customs process reforms. And believe me, these were in the works, and they got a fillip because we realized that we also need to help our export and help our import, remove bottlenecks, see to it that the trade becomes more resilient. So process reforms are largely designed to ease the processes of customs, ease congestion at the port, faster turnaround time of cargo. We are coming up with a scheme of duty deferral, for example. So certain entities get a duty deferral of 15 days. We are now extending it to 1 month. We are bringing a new category of importers, the manufacturers importers. We are nudging them to become AEOs in the future, and therefore this is a scheme designed with a 2-year window that they will also get a automatic treatment. For our exporters, if it is a container that is sealed at the factory and having an e-seal and no seal has been tampered with, you simply go through. There are no encumbrances. For our courier imports, a very big announcement where we have done away with the limits of the 10 lakh threshold limit beyond which you could not export by courier. This is going to help a lot of our industry, niche sectors like garment, fashion designers, bespoke furniture.
सर इसमें एक फॉलो अप क्वेश्चन है. बेसिकली जो इस वक्त की सिचुएशन है जहाँ पे ग्लोबल मार्केट में हमारे एक्सपोर्टर्स के लिए काफ़ी चैलेंजेस हैं। तो ऑफ कोर्स जो नेक्स्ट जनरेशन रिफॉर्म्स की बात की जा रही है कस्टम है, वो इंडिया की जो कम्पिटिटिवनेस है ग्लोबल मार्केट में उसको बनाए रखने के लिए
जी।
जिसमें आपको ट्रांसपेरेंसी कम करना और जो क्लियरेंस के लिए टाइमिंग है उसको कम करना, ये सबसे मेजर रिफॉर्म होगी। उस दिशा में उस लेवल पे कोई कदम?
हाँ, तो उसी दिशा की कदम मैं आपको
टाइम को कट करना है, जो जो क्लियरेंस टाइमिंग है जो कि इस वक्त है हमारे पोर्ट्स पे, उसमें कमी लाने के लिए।
तो जैसा मैंने बताया आपको, एक्सपोर्ट के लिए जब आपके फैक्ट्री से कोई भी माल निकल के अगर ई सील होके जा रहा है और सील में कोई टेम्परिंग नहीं है, तो उसके बाद कस्टम पोर्ट पे आने पे कस्टम की कोई भी कार्रवाई गुड्स को लेके नहीं होगी। उसी में सबसे ज़्यादा समय लगता है आपको। निर्यातकों को जो सबसे ज़्यादा असुविधा होती थी वो होती थी कि माल खुल रहा है। तो इस चीज़ का हमने प्रयास किया है कि हम ऑटोमेटिकली उसको लेट एक्सपोर्ट ऑर्डर दे दें।
और उसमें एक पिछले दिनों इश्यूज हुए थे, खासकर करप्शन को लेके, जहाँ पे ट्रांसपेरेंसी मेंटेन नहीं की जा रही है, क्लियरेंस से संबंधित इस तरह के कंसर्न्स को एड्रेस करने के लिए।
जी, देखिए, जहाँ तक उन इश्यूज़ का सवाल है, उसके लिए हमारी एक विजिलेंस की मैकेनिज़्म है। जो जिस घटना का आप संदर्भ दे रहे हैं, उस पे उचित कार्यवाही उचित माध्यम से हो रही है और सरकार उसमें माइंडफुल है कि उसमें और क्या-क्या सुधार किए जाएँ, तो उस प्रक्रिया में भी कार्य हो रहा है।
So when we talk about exports, and I'm glad that you touched upon it, and we have asked you follow-up questions on that. The expectation was that while the government of India is looking at forging FTAs with different sets of countries, in fact, very recently we've done an FTA with EU countries as well, 27 countries plus the one with the EFTA countries, and of course the UK FTA. However, there was a concern that there's going to be time before these FTAs come into effect, at least a year or so, at least 6 months is what the expectation on the UK FTA is. If I were to ask you, with all the reforms that you've announced today, with all the measures that you've announced today on account of duty reduction, what is your hope for exports growth in the country, which have remained pretty resilient in the past couple of months, except barring for the month of December?
So as I answered your first question, it is an extremely calibrated approach designed basically to see to it that bottlenecks as well as restrictions on import by way of availability of raw material at a concessional date, those are removed. I'll give you an example. For example, you might have noticed there is an announcement to the effect that as far as the fishermen are concerned,
Yes.
they can now go up to the exclusive economic zone of the country. And if you bring in any produce which is harvested in the exclusive economic zone, that is not going to be treated as an import because you have extended the definition of India under the Customs Act to go beyond the territorial waters. Now, at the same time, they can also export from there. So harvesting from there, moving into an export, these are the sort of measures that we brought in. Of course, it is very sector specific, I would say. But at the same time, these measures, the process reforms, as well as the calibration on the rate structure, particularly in relation to critical inputs that are required for our industry, I think together as a package, it will definitely boost exports. It will lead to greater manufacturing, Atmanirbhar Bharat and Viksit Bharat.
Allow me to come to the Chairman CBDT. On tax collection targets, in fact, a target has been set at 28.75 lakh crore for FY27, the net tax collection target. My question to you, sir, what is the current status of collection target in the current fiscal year so far? And will you be able to achieve this target going forward?
Well, we are sure that we will be able to achieve it with the revised targets that we have been given because current net collection is more than about 9.11% so far as growth is concerned. And the asking rate is about 8.75. So presently the growth rate is more than what is the asking rate, and therefore we are confident that we should be able to sail through.
ओके, बाईबैक से रिलेटेड भी कुछ फैसले लिए गए जिसमें कहा जा रहा है कि रिलीफ है, इसके पीछे का रैशनल क्या है?
जुलाई 2024 में अगर आप याद करें कि बाईबैक के कंटेक्स्ट में चेंजेस किए गए थे जिसमें बाईबैक की जो इनकम थी उसको डिविडेंड का रूप दिया था और उसको ये डिविडेंड के रूप में उसको टैक्स कर रहे थे, और जो कॉस्ट ऑफ एक्विजिशन उस शेयर्स की थी जिसको बाईबैक किया गया उसको कैपिटल लॉस करके उस प्रथा प्रावधान के उसको सेट ऑफ करेंगे। इंडस्ट्री की तरफ से, टैक्स पेयर्स की तरफ से ये था कि भाई conceptually that may not be correct because ultimately आपका asset you are giving it back to the company and therefore it becomes difficult कि उस capital loss का एक normal common taxpayer क्या करे because it is implicit assumption was कि आगे भी capital gains होगा जिसमें कि set off किया जाएगा तो उस concept को clean किया है और जो नेचर ऑफ ट्रांजैक्शन है वो तो कैपिटल ट्रांसफर ही है तो देयरफॉर कैपिटल गेन्स उसमें लॉजिकली आना चाहिए जिसको कि अब यहाँ पर लोग लाए हैं और कॉमन टैक्स पे पे नॉर्मल टैक्स पे के लिए तो इट इज़ फ़ायदा है क्योंकि पहले डिविडेंड टैक्स जो लगता था डिविडेंड के ऊपर टैक्स लगता था वो 30% या एप्लीकेबल रेट पे लगता था जबकि यहाँ पर अगर लॉन्ग टर्म कैपिटल गेन्स है तो 12.5% पे लगेगा तो इमीडिएटली एक नॉन प्रमोटर जो टैक्स पेयर है उसको तो इमीडिएट फ़ायदा है जो प्रमोटर टैक्स पेयर है वो पहले भी 30% पे बिकॉज नॉर्मली जो प्रमोटर टैक्स पेयर अगर इंडिविजुअल्स हैं तो वो तो हायर स्लैब पे ही हैं तो वो लोग उस रेट पे टैक्स दे ही रहे थे उनके लिए उस सेंस में कोई नुकसान नहीं है और दूसरा ये है कि उनको जो पहले कैपिटल लॉस के लिए उनको आगे लेके जाना पड़ता था वो यहाँ पर उनको सेट ऑफ भी मिल जा रहा है तो पहले जो डिविडेंड थी जो ग्रॉस कंसिडरेशन था वो पूरा डिविडेंड के रूप में टैक्स हो जाता था अब जो टैक्स होगा वो उसके जो कैश जो शेयर्स की जो परचेज कंसिडरेशन है उसको माइनस करके होगा सो दैट वे दोनों का चाहे प्रमोटर हो चाहे नॉन प्रमोटर दोनों का इसमें फायदा है
Okay, sir, last question before I let you go on GST collection numbers. So what new measures are you going to adopt for the FY27 in next financial year to achieve this target? I'm talking about the budgetary.
यस आई नो देखिए जहाँ तक जीएसटी का प्रश्न है ऑफ कोर्स क्योंकि रेट रैशनलाइजेशन जब सितंबर में लाए थे तो उसकी वजह से इम्पैक्ट पड़ा था और अगर आप इस बार का आज के जो कलेक्शन फिगर देखिए तो करीब 1,99,000 करोड़ क्रॉस है जो कि रफली उतना ही उससे थोड़ा ज़्यादा है जितना पिछले वर्ष जनवरी 2025 में था नॉट विथस्टैंडिंग द रेट रैशनलाइजेशन तो हमारी उम्मीद है कि टैक्सेबल सप्लाई की वैल्यू बढ़ी है बाज़ार में और ग्रोथ की ट्रेजेक्ट्री लिंक्ड विद इंक्रीज इन द प्रोडक्शन एंड इंक्रीज इन द टैक्सेबल सप्लाई शुड टेक केयर ऑफ इट ऑफ कोर्स ये कोई मैजिक वॉन्ड नहीं है उसमें समय लगेगा क्योंकि इम्पैक्ट था और काफ़ी सब्सटेंशियल इम्पैक्ट था लेकिन हमें उम्मीद है कि आने वाले दिनों में इसमें सुधार होगा और कलेक्शंस धीरे धीरे उसी लेवल पे आएंगे जहाँ पे पहले थे